Welcome to Retirement Rescue Radio, a show specifically designed to help retirees and pre-retirees maximize their financial efficiency so you can live the retirement lifestyle you've always imagined. Your host is Nate Miller, investment advisor representative and author of the CPR Retirement Rescue Roadmap. Nate discusses thoughts and ideas from some of today's most knowledgeable professionals in the field of finance. He offers strategies along the way to help you make better financial decisions so you can maximize your retirement. This is Retirement Rescue Radio.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Retirement Rescue Radio. Today's topic, we're going to go over the present value of money as it relates to the Roth conversion question. And so what does that mean, really? So what that means is there's an argument that people have about whether or not to convert to a Roth, because they're saying, let's pretend we have $500,000 in our IRA and we decide to convert. If we convert and we have to pay tax on that money, well, now we have less money in our account to compound, right? And so the theory is that we're going to have less money down the road to be able to spend because we just got rid of a huge chunk of it that had to go to Uncle Sam. That's the argument, right? And I'm here to tell you that that is a completely worthless argument because it's not true. Because the problem we have, the mistake that we're making is thinking that when we look at that $500,000 balance, we're thinking that all $500,000 is ours, and it's not, right? I want to show you guys something here. Let me pull up part of my screen, and I'm going to show what I mean. So for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see. If you're just listening to it in your car, just follow along. It should be self-explanatory anyway. I just like to have some visual aids. So here is a fictional account statement, right? And what you're seeing down here at the very bottom is that $500,000 balance that I talked about. And this is an IRA. And so that means that that's a taxable or tax deferred account, right? So what else does that mean? What does tax deferred really mean? Well, it means that $500,000, if this is my account or your account, that $500,000 is not all mine and it's not all yours, right? Why? Because we are partnered with the IRS. If we are in a 25% tax bracket, we actually only have $375,000 in that account. And that's it. We don't have $500,000. We have $375,000 because we're partnered with the IRS on $125,000 of that account. So $375,000 is ours to spend, and only $125,000 is the IRS's to spend, basically, right? And so the question of, well, I don't want to convert my $500,000 because then I might only have $375,000 growing. It's like you only had $375,000 growing anyway. That's all you had. That's all you ever had, right? Seeing the whole $500,000 on there is a complete myth. And so what I want to do now is I'm going to go through a scenario that shows exactly that. So we've got all of these different spreadsheets here that are probably going to make some people go cross-eyed because it's a lot of numbers. But here's what we're going to do. I mentioned that we've got $500,000 in the account, right? And that $500,000 is going to grow. So what you're seeing is here is the S&P 500 returns. I think I got off of Yahoo Finance from 2000 through 2021. And if you had $500,000 in that account, and if you didn't have to take any money out yet, so let's say you got a little while before you're going to hit retirement or before you're going to hit 72 and have to start taking required minimum distributions, you got some time, right? So let's look at this. So right now, ignore the $25,000 that says as income right here, because those were actually showing zero withdrawals in that column right here. So that $500,000, if we had similar returns from 2000 all the way through 2021, our end result at the end of 2021 would be $2.2 million, roughly $2,200,724. All right. So that's our end result. And that's how much money we have. So then the argument of, well, I've only got $375,000 compounding, right? So how much is that going to be? Well, let's look. That is going to be $1,650,000. Sorry, $1,650,543. That's it. So the problem is they're looking at that going, well, that is less. $1,650,543 is less than the $2.2 million. Well, yeah, it is. But now that $1.65 million is all yours. It is absolutely all yours. That $125,000 that was compounding, well, what does that equal? $550,000, $550,181 if you're listening and you're not seeing this on YouTube. And so the 125 grew to 550. If you add the 550 to the 1.65 million, guess what you get? You get the 2.2 million. So what does that mean? If you take 25% off of the 2.2 million, you're going to have 1.6 million. So this 2.2 million, that's still not all yours. 25% of that's going to go to Uncle Sam if you're still in the 25% tax bracket. So this whole idea of present value of money, or I won't have as much money in my account to compound, you never did anyway because it wasn't all yours. And that's the issue. If we can get in our head that when we're looking at an IRA statement, that all of that money is not ours, then we start to understand this concept. Because in the last 2 tax workshops that I have done for retirees, I had in each one of those, I had someone say something about the present value of money. And they were basically talking about this argument right here. And when I was explaining this to them, they weren't getting it. You could see the light bulb in their head just wasn't going off yet. And it's because they probably have had pounded into their head their entire life, this argument right here. But if you can just let go of the fact that not all of that money that you're looking at in that IRA statement is yours, then you really start to understand this concept. So this is breaking the myth of the whole present value of money Roth conversion argument. It's a completely worthless argument. It doesn't apply here. And even when I go online I look at some calculators on like, should you do a Roth conversion on this calculator? What they're showing, at least the ones that I've gone to so far, and they're by, some pretty big names, is they're showing, by the time you have to actually start taking money out, what are the account balances, right? Well, the IRA account balance is depending on the numbers that you put in. IRA account balance is going to be more, so the Roth is not a good idea. But when I look at the numbers and the percentage differences, I'm like, no, you actually still have more spendable money by putting money into the Roth. It's because that's what it is. It's all about spendable money. The money that goes to Uncle Sam, we cannot spend. We can't spend that. It goes to Uncle Sam and they spend it on stupid stuff. We'll just say, I'll just try to keep that PG, right? And so, yeah, it's like you never have all of that money in there anyway. And so this is if there's no money coming out. Right. But you all know that I specialize in working with people in retirement. And so what does this start to look like if we're taking money out? Well, if we're taking money out, this is what it looks like. So let's look over here. I'll try to make this a little bit smaller. So you're just looking at one chart at a time, make it easier on your eyes so you're not going cross-eyed. Right. All right. So we're looking at one chart here. Let me make this one smaller as well. So bear with me here if you're listening just on the audio, because you're like, all right, get to it. Come on. I'm like, oh, we'll just wait for a second. Think of a good joke that you might know while I get all my numbers organized here. All right. So the first one here, let's take money out of the $500,000 one. So let's take 5% out. Right. So it's going to be a nice, easy round number. 5% of 500,000 is $25,000 per year. And if you've listened to any of my past podcasts where I go through pulling money out of a growth focused portfolio, it may not actually work very well because of the math of gains and losses. The math of gains and losses states that a larger percentage gain is always needed to offset a smaller loss. And so if you lose 10% in the market, and then 10% gains back, you're still not back to even. So if you have 100, lose 10%, you got 90. 10% goes back up, you only have 99. So if the market went down 10 and back up 10, but you're still negative, right? You needed 11% in slight change just to get your account balance back to even. And the larger that loss, the larger the gain. So let's say you lose 35% in 1 year. I mean, that 36% actually happened in the S&P here recently with the coronavirus. It went down and came back really, really fast. But you lose 35, you actually need 54% to gain back, right? And if you're taking money out at the same time, well, that's a bigger hit to the portfolio. It might mean your portfolio actually lost 40% or 45% during that time frame. And so that's going to need to 67% if it lost 40%. And that's just very difficult for the market to do, right? And so what you're seeing here is that phenomenon happen. I mean, it was not a very good start to the century, 2000, 01, and 02, 3 straight down years, right? And so we're losing money. And then we have a few good years, then we get hit by 2008, right? And so it took the longest bull market in history just to keep that money there. But here's the thing. So the 500,000 becomes at the end of 21 years, if we're only taking 5% out and we're averaging basically about 8.5%, 8.53, well, the math of gains and losses, the ups and downs in those individual years, the $500,000 goes to $192,000. So you've basically got a third of what you started with. You lost 2/3 of your portfolio in an account that basically averaged about 3.5% more than what we started taking out. And so that's how the math of gains and losses can really hurt a portfolio in retirement. But that's not the point that we're going over right now. The point we're going over right now is how much spendable money do we have? Well, $192,384 is what we've got left. Now, $192,384, if we take 25% off of that, that's $48,096. What are we left with? $144,288. And what is the 375 number that we're left with? When we start taking that same amount out, the 5% of the 375 is 18,750, right? And so 144,288, that's what we've got left. And so 18,750, guess what that is? That also ends up being 75% of the 25,000 we were taking out. So we're still paying tax on that, right? So we can only spend 18,750. We're not spending the full 25,000 that we're taking out. And so yeah, the amount that Uncle Sam got to compound and then take money out of, right? If they were taking the same money out, 48,096. That's what I just said that we had to subtract it by. And so it's still the same. It's still the same. You have the same spendable money if you convert than if you don't. And so the present value of money argument is completely worthless, right? At least when it comes to Roth conversions. And so now that question is, it looks like it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense, or not necessarily a whole lot of sense, but really, no tax benefit for doing it. Oh, no, it still does, because there's another phenomenon that's really happening. So I'm going to go back to this PowerPoint here. So the way the taxes work on your IRA is, let's say you've got that big balance. So you've got this big IRA chunk of money right here. And let's say in the scenario, you're going to take your required minimum distributions. And in this case, let's say you don't need them. You don't need all of them. And I've got a lot of my clients that are actually in that situation. They've done a good job of saving, so they have a big amount. They've done a good job with, I guess, their careers, and so they've got good Social Security amounts. And then if even one of them has a pension, they've got everything paid off most times. So they got no mortgage. They've got their they've got their cars paid off, no credit card debt. So their expenses are pretty darn low. Kids are growing out, and so if they've even got one pension plus their Social Security amounts, that's usually enough to meet their income needs. And so they don't actually need the IRA balance that they did a good job saving. And so they still have to take it out though. And so once they hit 72, they start taking that money out. Well, they're going to have to pay tax on it, right? And we're assuming right here, we're just using the 25% tax bracket as our example. And so they're going to pay tax on that. Well, guess what? If they don't need it, where do they put it? Well, they can't convert RMD proceeds to Roth IRA. Once you have taken your required minimum distribution, you cannot convert that to a Roth. So it has to go into an after-tax account, right? Some people will call it a brokerage account or an individual account or joint account. Basically, the distribution that you took from the IRA, you pay your taxes on that, and then you put it into the after-tax account. So now the tax has already been paid on it. So you're not going to pay tax on that amount again, but you will pay tax on the growth of those assets and any dividends that they might spin off, right? And so boom, there's tax on that. So that's growth from the reallocated assets that you're going to pay. Now, not only that, when we pass away, unfortunately, Uncle Sam is not done with this. And so we're going to pay, or not us, but when we pass away, our heirs are going to pay tax on those IRA dollars as well. So what does that look like, guys? So if here is I guess a little assumption here. If there's a guy that's in his mid 60s here, once again, 25% tax bracket, utilizing that $500,000 balance that we talked about a little bit earlier. He's going to start taking his RMDs when he's 72. And let's say he's going to average about 5% on any of the assets that he has invested. Well, what does and he's going to live to 90 also, right? So what does his tax situation really look like? Well, it looks like this, guys. When he just decides to take his required minimum distributions, he's not going to convert to an IRA. So this is, looking at one strategy versus the other strategy. So if I'm just going to do nothing, I'm just going to take my RMDs, reinvest what I don't need, and then just, live my life and have my retirement and then pass away. That's what we're doing. And if he does that, then what he will pay on all of those required minimum distributions throughout his lifetime living to age 90 is about $164,000. 164,337, really. The tax that he would pay on the growth of those reallocated assets, a little over 67,000. And then the tax paid by his heirs on the remaining IRA value when he passes away, another $106,000. So the total tax that he's going to pay on those IRA dollars is $338,389. And remember, his balance today is only $500,000. So that's a lot. And that's assuming taxes don't go up. I ask this question in every single one of my tax workshops. Who here thinks taxes are going to be lower in the future? And guess how many hands raised? 0. I'm still batting 1,000 for that. Nobody thinks taxes are going to be lower in the future. They think they're going to be higher. And so this is just figuring the tax brackets stay the same, but we know they could go higher. It could go lower, but with all the spending that we've been doing, stimulus packages, stuff like that, how far we're in debt, I mean, honestly, they're probably going to have to go up. And so 338,000 if taxes just stay the same. Now, if we do a different strategy, what's the result? Well, we've got that IRA balance. What if we convert it to a Roth? Now, we probably wouldn't convert all $500,000 in 1 year because that would bump you up some tax brackets. So maybe it's a few years. It's a strategic Roth integration that we're doing here. And so the taxes paid on a $500,000 balance at a 25%. There's your $125,000 again. And we all know that the tax that you pay on any growth inside of an IRA is 0. And the tax that your heirs are going to pay on any remaining Roth IRA balance is still 0. So now the total taxes paid throughout the retirement are only $125,000 when they were $338,000. And so we help people once they're figuring out that this might be a situation that they'll find themselves in, as we try to figure out based on the rest of their scenario, their income, tax brackets and stuff like that, are they a good candidate for a Roth conversion? Because I mean, right here, we're looking at a $213,000 difference. And guys, that means that's $213,000 of extra spendable money now. That's true spendable money. And that's what we're after, is how much money you can spend, not what does your account balance look like, right? If you just want to feed your ego and have a bigger account balance, we don't do any Roth conversions, right? But if you want more spendable money throughout your lifetime, we need to find out if you're a good candidate for a Roth conversion based on all the other things you got going on. And so that's what I do if I were you guys, if I were listening to this. If you wanted to find out if you're a good candidate for this, just reach out to us. Like I said, we're going to have our calendar link in the notes here. But yeah, so I wanted to get, hopefully that makes sense now, and you guys can understand that present value of money conversation really doesn't hold water anymore. So I'm going to put these 3 right here so we can see all of them all of them on there at the same time, right? So that's it, guys. Yeah, reach out to us if you want to find out if you're a good candidate, because when we're trying to plan for people's retirement, the number one fear is still running out of money. And so if we're able to position someone's portfolio from a tax standpoint to where they have more spendable money throughout their retirement, guess what? That means the portfolio has a better chance of lasting their entire life. And so that's why we make this part of our planning process. So once again, if that's a concern of yours, or even if you're curious to find out if there is something that we can do to help you save money on taxes, just reach out, click that link. We've got 15 minutes that we can have a phone call there. And then if we find out we need to dig a little bit deeper, we can set a visit to do that too. So that's it. Thanks for sticking around for me to bust this myth, and enjoy the rest of the week. Let me stop sharing here real quick. All right. I say, guys, take care.